What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Tuesday Spirited Live with me, Mr. Sam Nash, drinking the Whiskey Somm. And actually, you know what? I almost didn't say Whiskey Somm this time because I'm in the middle, actually, of potentially changing my branding around, moving away from using the Whiskey Somm and just having Whiskey Somm as one of my credentials. That is a story for another time. Today, I'm excited to welcome back my friend, Mr. Forbes McMullin, the VP of Sales for the US of A for the Loch Lomond Group, which, as we can see here, is Loch Lomond Scotch Whiskey. We had Glen Scotia the other week. They also have Glengarry Blended Highland Malt, but unfortunately, I couldn't find it. I went to two of like the 800,000 Trader Joe's around me, and the two I went to, I was being super lazy and didn't do it until the last bloody minute almost, didn't have it. And I'm like, well, that's a bummer. So
Yeah.
instead of tasting through 5 fantastic scotches, we're tasting through 4 fantastic scotches. Could be worse, right?
Could be.
Oh, Forbes, you're the first time I've ever done a two-parter.
Well, I'm honored. I'm honored. I guess it's appropriate with the fact that we have two distilleries at Loch Lomond Group, both the Loch Lomond Distillery, which is Highlands Distillery, which we'll be talking about today, and then obviously a few weeks back, we discussed Glen Scotia, which one of the 3 Campbelltown distilleries. So I think it's good to separate the two. We have different styles. I mean, they're different regions, and really the only thing that really connects the two, other than the ownership, is the fact that that we use the same cooperage that we have on site at Loch Lomond that we'll be discussing today for our barrels at Glen Scotia. So it's good to be back, and happy to be discussing some whiskeys made at the Loch Lomond Distillery today.
So the first question I'm going to ask is the obvious question, the boring question. What does Loch Lomond mean?
Well, Loch is the Gaelic word for lake, and Lomond, I don't know if there's any meaning of it, but it basically just means Lake Lomond. It's the largest lake in Scotland. Our distillery is it's now on the South Shore. Initially, when Loch Lomond Distillery first started back in 1814, so over 200 years ago, we were on the north shore of the lake, and now I guess since about the 1960s, we're on the south side, a little bit closer to Glasgow, about 45 minutes northwest of Glasgow. So that's where a lot of the people from the distillery work. So the commuting time's a little bit less. But Loch Lomond, it's a beautiful lake. It's sort of comparable to our Lake Tahoe. It's surrounded by mountains. There's a really, really nice hiking mountain there called Ben Lomond. And lots of golf courses, and it's a great sort of recreational place where a lot of people go to vacation, and it's right around this one of their national parks called like Trossachs, I believe is how you pronounce it. But it's a great destination, great place to go, and a great day trip from Glasgow, which is the largest city in Scotland.
I'm so sorry about the yawn, Forbes. I did not get a great night's sleep. Like I mentioned to you before stream started, the dog wasn't doing too great last night, and we took him to the vet for kind of emergency early this morning. He kept me up for a little while with his hacking and coughing, and he wasn't doing too well. You mentioned that there's a lot of great golf courses, so that actually is going to lead us into, I'll kind of segue into that a little bit later, but you guys are the official sponsor of the Open.
Correct. I guess it was about 3 years ago we signed a 5-year partnership with the British Open. We're officially now the spirit of the Open. We're the only liquor sponsor. So it's been a great partnership for us so far. Obviously, last year's British Open was postponed, and so we're going to be playing the 149th this year at Royal St. George's, just a little bit southeast of London. And then next year is the big one. That's going to be the 150th British Open, back at the St. Andrews Old Course. So everything we're doing now, it tied in with Loch Lomond, is tied in with golf. All of our marketing, we brought on board some professional golfers as brand ambassadors. I know we're going to be talking about one of our special limited editions today with that Colin Montgomery has his signature on. We have another one that that Darren Clark, who's probably the most famous a golfer from Northern Ireland. We also have an LPGA player, Christy Kerr, And if you guys are familiar with Rich Beam, who won the PGA Championship back in, I believe, 2002, he's also now on board with us as one of our brand ambassadors. So it's great having everything tied in. As I think as I heard our CEO mention, there's two great exports from Scotland, very famous golf and Scotch. So it's great to be able to correlate the two. So we're really excited to be able to tie in golf with the Loch Lomond name. In the past, a couple of years ago, we were running lots of TV commercials leading up to the British Open, which we'll probably be doing again as well, depending on what the situation is. And we've been involved with the Golf Channel and the Claret Jug Tour. The Claret Jug is the trophy that the winner receives, and it goes on tour for several months around the U.S. before the British Open every year. So it's just very exciting.
Can't really see it. Put it on this little foil cap right here.
Yep.
You said Scotland has two famous exports. Well, I'm going to argue there's four.
Okay.
At least, but the main two are definitely Scotch and golf, but there's also bagpipes and haggis.
Correct. Yes, haggis. I guess for those of you that are big Robert Burns fans, hope you were able to partake of some haggis a couple weeks ago. So
I joined a virtual celebration with another Scotch whiskey brand, but there was no haggis. They sent haggis crisps, but they didn't send haggis.
Well, my favorite haggis, because I can't say it's my favorite, but the favorite thing I've had so far was in Campbelltown a few years ago. They had haggis nachos, so that was a new
haggis nachos. Yeah, that sounds amazing, actually.
It actually was not bad. So that was something I had at the I think the hotel is called the Royal Hotel in Campbelltown, and there's a pub down there called the Black Sheep, and it pretty much all they have are Campbelltown scotches and haggis meal. So I had my first experience with haggis nachos. It was memorable, to say the least.
Well, I don't have any haggis nachos, but I do have some delicious Highland Scotch.
Right.
So let's get into the Loch Lomond original, shall we?
Sure. So, one thing that's really unique about the Loch Lomond distillery, it's the only distillery in Scotland that makes both blends and single malts under the same roof. So we have two different types of pot stills that we use for a single malt. We have our column stills for the blend, and we also have a coffee still that we use for our single grain, or I guess it would be more appropriate to be able to call it a coffee malt. But the Loch Lomond Original, which is what you're trying right now, that's our sort of our entry level into the single malt category. So we're kind of in the same target area as like a Glenlivet Founders Reserve, where there's no age statement on it per se, but it is on average 5 to 8 years old. It's actually the only single malt that we make that we chill filter. Everything else, both at Loch Lomond and at Glencoe, is non-chill filtered. Correct.
Now that's fascinating.
So it's also the only one that's 80 proof. Everything else is 92 and above. So what's great about this is that we have a price point of about $29.99 on the shelf, where Glenlivet Founders Reserve is usually about $10 a bottle higher, so it's about $39. So we're able to really kind of get a lot of blend drinkers and have them up their game to a single malt while still staying under that $30 threshold. And then it's also great because it's sort of a sweet spot with a lot of whiskeys, and not just scotches, but with bourbons and Canadians and so forth.
What's the cask maturation on this?
I'm sorry?
I said, what's the cask maturation on this?
Bourbon. It's bourbon.
100% bourbon.
Yep, in like 5 to 8 years. Yeah.
This is really.
It's a great
sweet.
It's a great single malt for someone to try to just get into it at a very aggressive price point. Like I said, it's much lower than than where single malt scotches have lived in the past, and we're trying to basically get people to try single malts that in the past may have thought it was out of their price range. And it's also great because a lot of hotels, for example, and restaurants, they can now use a single malt in their cocktails. And whereby in the past they would have just had a blend, but now they can sort of upgrade the entire experience by having a single malt available if they want to mix it. Although I think it's just great neat or on the rocks. So it's it's just something that it's just a great sort of segue to get people trying it single malt at a very aggressive price point.
Now,
and we have the same scores as like a Glenlivet Found Reserve. We're just $10 a bottle less, 25% less.
want to give a quick shout out to our friend Joe, who's back in the comments again this week. He was here for our Glen Scotia episode. He's been tuning in a lot recently. He said Loch Lomond is a gorgeous place. Joe, I love you and I hate you. Where haven't you been in Scotland? I've yet to get across. I was supposed to be there April of 2020, but obviously, plans changed. Now, Forbes, you keep talking about blends and single malts. I know we don't have it with us because you wanted to focus on stuff that's more commercially available.
I'm sorry?
I do want to briefly, you keep mentioning, blends and single malts and upping their game from a blend to a single malt. I know we don't have it with us today because you wanted to talk about SKUs that are more commercially available still, that are available, every day in the market, more or less. But I want to touch on Loch Lomond Reserve, which was a SKU you guys had up until about 2.5, 3 years ago, right?
Right. Yes. So, obviously, Loch Lomond being, as I mentioned, the only distillery to make both blends and single malts, we have, the Loch Lomond name, it basically began at a blend, and then it moved all the way up to a 50-year. And we just decided that to sort of help, avoid any confusion, we were going to make Loch Lomond strictly single malts. So we do have the Glengarry line that is now becoming available in the U.S. because obviously, blends are 80% of the volume, and it's about, I think recently now, as far as total revenue goes with scotches, it's about 50% blend, 50% single malts, even though blends are 80% of the volume and single malts are only 20%. But we do want to have, we wanted to make sure we had one of our blends available from the Loch Lomond distillery. So now, as I mentioned, we have a brand that is called Glengarry that's available, and it's fairly new to the U.S. market. Just got into California a few months ago, like right before the holidays, and it's available at Trader Joe's. I got a bottle of it right here, but it's a very nice blend, and I think at Trader Joe's it retails for $11.99, which is a steal because it's again, getting very aggressive with the pricing. But as one of only 7 grain distilleries in Scotland, we make a lot of the juice for a lot of those big name brands. So a lot of those brands you've heard of we're making the juice for them. So we just happen to save the best for our Glengarry. So that's just something. I'm sorry you weren't able to find it at the stores you went to, but I don't know if they're already sold out or what. But we'll certainly make sure that I'll let you know which stores hopefully can carry it. So that's just the one thing I wanted to touch. I know we're going to try to taste it, but
yeah, no, unfortunately we didn't get to taste it. My biggest question with the Glengarry, what kind of Scotch is it? What is the 5 categories? Is it a blended? Is it a blended malt? Or is it a blended grain?
It's a blend. It's a blend, and then also we have also a no age statement and a single malt. But out in California, we're just focusing on the blend business. So
because when I looked at the label on the Loch Lomond website, it said blended Highland malt Scotch whiskey, which made me think that okay, it's a blended malt. That's why I was confused because the label that I saw said blended Highland malt, not blended Highland Scotch.
Well, from my understanding with it, it's all made from the 2 pot stills that we make, which obviously is all malt, and then also our coffee still that we use for our single grain. We only use malt in that. We don't use any other. There are no other grains. So by definition, it's a coffee malt, but we can't call it that because of the Scotch.
By definition, yeah, because even though if you're distilling 100% malted barley on a column still, on a coffee still, it's still a single grain Scotch.
Right. Exactly. So by default, even though it's 100% malted barley that we use, because the coffee still is continuous, we can't call it a single malt. So
right,
that could be. So that's what we use in the Glengarry blend.
Gotcha. I can't get over this Loch Lomond original. Now, what is this going to retail for?
$29.99. So very.
Right. I'm sorry. You said that. I was so engrossed in the whiskey.
Yep. So yeah, like I mentioned, it's really the only, one of the only single malts you'll find out there at that price point. And
what's the ppm?
I I don't really think there's much. What's the peat in it?
Yeah.
Very low. I mean, I don't even know if I think there might, if anything is probably 5%. The 18, which we're going to get to last. I mean, that's really the big, that's the peatiest of
Yeah,
the three.
that's the big boy. I had a wee sip before we started chatting today. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, well, I have this right here. It'd be a shame not to have some.
right. And
Um,
and one thing also, Sam, I wanted to mention. I know that we just did a redo on our packaging, so it's just starting to come over into the U.S. now. So all of the packaging that you see there on the original, the 12 and the 18, is going to be transitioning to a sort of a different, more, I think, sort of, I think it's more of a classic label profile that we're going to be doing with
and
the
you know what?
Loch
That
Lomond.
leads me into a great question, Forbes. Now that the TTB has authorized and allowed the use of 700 ml bottles, will LLG, Loch Lomond Group, Loch Lomond, Glen Scotia, Glengarry, and the rest of the SKUs be transitioning into 700 ml glass instead of 750 ml glass? And if the core won't be transitioning, will we be able to see more, unique releases coming out in, the new glass?
Well, I think there's no question that it's gonna definitely allow us to expand our options here in the U.S. There's a lot of SKUs that we make, that we export from the UK to other countries that we don't do here in the U.S. And a lot of it is because of the 700 versus 750 ml issue. With us being really the only major country, I think South Africa might be the only other one that
I
does
believe they're
750.
the only other one. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have to, put in our requests well in advance for the 750s, and sometimes we don't know, how well, a new SKU is going to do. So it just makes it a little more difficult where, some things we just have to unfortunately pass on, even though they sound like great opportunities, but because of the issue with the sizing, we may decide to hold off on that, or, or postpone it indefinitely. So by having 700s now, is an option where it's certainly going to allow us to bring a lot more new different SKUs. And I guess as to your question as to whether or not we're going to transition, I think we're going to wait and just sort of see, what other brands do, what other scotches. Every scotch looks like they're transitioning to a 700, then it will probably follow the lead. But I mean, right now, immediately, we're not looking on doing that right away. I think also, with with the tariffs and everything that have been happening, and I think that the timing might not be great to do that. Just so I think we're just going to hold off and see what what some of the other brands do, and if they decide to make the transition to 700s, we may follow suit. But it's certainly gonna allow us to have a lot more options moving forward.
Fair enough. The transition is something very bizarre, especially with the tariffs right now. It's something that a lot of whiskey drinkers are concerned about. Is okay, well, you're gonna take away, 2 glasses of whiskey or whatever, 2 pours, but you're gonna charge me the same price.
Right. There's certainly, I can understand there's that concern for sure. And right now with the tariffs, I just don't think the timing is right where that's what anybody wants to see happen. And I think the big hope is now that these tariffs will be lifted. Now that if you're familiar with how they originated, it was based on Airbus subsidies, and it was it was initially targeted towards the EU, but as of December 31st, the UK with Brexit is no longer part of the EU, and they rescinded their tariffs on our whiskey back, I think, at the end of the year, in hopes that we would immediately reciprocate. And I think that's what the hopes were, and we're still definitely holding out hope that that will be happening here very shortly.
Yeah, I thought I read something yesterday actually that claimed that President Biden was looking at releasing the tariffs on our end, so
Right.
that would be great for whiskey. Donner Pass Whiskey's in the chat right now and mentioned that he got a gift box of the LL12s, included Inchmere and 12 and Inchmere and peated. Now, we haven't talked about Inchmere or Inchmone, but those are 2 other distilleries in the Loch Lomond Group portfolio.
Correct. And then we had those available as well a couple years ago, and then we decided that we really wanted to focus on our core Loch Lomond portfolio. And and yes, we have a gift, or we call it a value-added pack, a VAP out there right now, which we call our 312s. So it's with the Loch Lomond 12, and then it's got a 50 ml of the Inchmurrin 12, and then the Inchmowen 12. And we are looking to introduce both the Inchmurrin 12 and the Inchmowen 12 later on this year. So we've had a really the value-added packs sold very well. So there's definitely some demand now back for the Inchmurrin 12 and the Inchmowen 12. So one of the things, with Loch Lomond being such a big lake, is that it actually has islands, and a series of islands, and the Gaelic word for island is inch. So we have what's called our island collection. So we have the Inchmurrin, which actually in Gaelic means grassy island, and then Inchmowen, which is Gaelic for Isle of Peat, appropriately. So we have our island collections, and we're going to be, as I mentioned, bringing in our 12 for both the Inchmurrin and the Inchmowen later on this year. So we're excited about that.
Very cool. I haven't had Inchmurrin or Inchmowen for a few years. Even before you guys stopped bringing it in, I hadn't had it for a few years. But I look forward to, the reintroduction of them. Let's focus a little more on the original, just because I'm loving this so much.
Yep.
It's 5 to 8 years, and it's chill filtered at 40%. But there's nothing wrong with chill filtering whiskey. But I so often find that when it's chill filtered, it loses some of the texture, the oiliness, the viscosity. But this does not. This really holds itself together. Could you just talk a little about the intention behind chill filtering?
Sure. Yeah, chill filtration. It's something that definitely the majority of scotches do, because when you chill Scotch down to about 0 Celsius, it releases these fatty acids and these proteins and esters, which cloud up the Scotch. So if you're going to take a Scotch that hasn't been chill filtered and put an ice cube in, it's gonna cloud it up. And a lot of people don't want that to happen. They want to be able to see through their Scotch and so forth. So what the majority of these companies do is they'll chill it down to that 0 degrees Celsius and then filter out all those ingredients. But the thing is, those are some integral parts of ingredients of a Scotch, and those are some of the things that make a Scotch. And fatty acids. It doesn't sound great, but it's something that really is a part of Scotch, and also the acid, the proteins and the esters. So you want to really keep those in. The majority of, as I mentioned, everything that we do is 46% alcohol up and above. So we don't chill filter anything other than the original. But to your point, it still doesn't seem like it's missing a whole lot, even though those ingredients have been filtered out.
Joe's asking, with the expansion of Loch Lomond, how are the stocks of 12 plus whiskey holding up?
We actually are in a great position with our 12. So we still have we made sure that when we started making the brands available directly from the distillery of the U.S., so we had plenty of inventory. So we're in good shape with that.
And that's just a 12, or is it 12 plus?
No,
I think he's looking more at Okay.
No, we're very, very good position with our aged scotches.
Good. No, Joe, I know, is a gentleman who has a very particular style he likes, and he likes the more funky, the weirder kind of scotches. And he's one of those guys who, when he likes your stuff, he'll be a loyal supporter. So I'm sure that he's got just a small little collection. I say that with a little bit of sarcasm. He's probably got quite a large collection of Loch Lomond at home.
Right.
Let's move on. Continuing with the no age statements, let's move on to the open now. Now, this interests me because it says distiller's cut. I've looked at the proof and it's 46. I'm expecting your distiller's cut to be a cask strength, but it's not.
Correct. Yeah. So there's no age statement on it, but it's still coming in at 46% and non-chill filtered. So this, price wise, this is going to fall in right between our original and the 12, which would be around a $34.99 price point. So this is a phenomenal single malt. And, I know people, have their opinions of Jim Murray and the Whiskey Bible. Well, this received a 95.5, which is a very high score, especially for a Scotch at a $34.99 price point. So, this has got, Colin Montgomery it's got his signature on it. So, this is just a limited release that we have for the British Open. But this is something, if you get your hands on it, it's really worth trying, because it's not very often you can get a 46 ABV, 92 proof, non-chill filtered, fantastic single malt at $34.99. So, like I mentioned, it's limited and it's going to be probably going quickly, but it's just a beautiful single malt, especially at that price point.
Now, talk to me about the barrel maturation on this.
I'm trying to think. This is finished. See if I can have some notes on this. It's matured in 3 different types of American oak casks. So it's managed by, as I mentioned, our on-site cooperage. We have 7 full-time coopers, and we're one of only 4 distilleries that have an on-site cooperage. But we use it's 3 types of American oak that we use for this.
Okay. Did it tell you more than that? What kind of American oak? Is it new charred oak? Is it an STR? Is it, ex-bourbon? Is it
it's definitely
ex-bourbon?
Yeah, it's ex-bourbon. I believe it's first fill, refill, and recharred. All American oak and all ex-bourbon.
So most likely American white oak.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely we call it with the Q Albus.
Quercus alba.
Quercus, yes, that one. Yep. Pretty nice, huh?
I'm not sure. It reminds me of a gin. No, I like a gin. I like gin a lot.
Yeah, I got when I taste, I got some
expect
peach.
to get a juniper citrus.
I get more, sort of citrusy fruit out of it. I also got a little bit of, orange citrus, a little vanilla.
I definitely see that vanilla.
Yeah.
I would assume it's from the ex-bourbon.
Yeah.
Or perhaps a rechar, if you're bringing out all those flavors again with a rechar.
Right.
It tastes like iodine.
Well, let me see if I have. I'll tell you what Mr. Murray had to say about this. I actually have it right here.
Forbes, with all due respect, I would rather not, because I prefer to keep Jim Murray off of this channel. I'm glad he gave it a good score. I just prefer to keep those words off of this channel.
All right. Yeah. Fair enough. I was just going to go off of a different, off a different opinion on it.
Any other opinion is more than welcome. But anyway, there's like this kind of briny taste to it, kind of like, like salt water or like seafood. It's interesting because it's not quite a peat taste. It's like it's like if you macerated juniper berries in like salt water and then took them out of it. The color is really interesting. It's really light. Now, officially to no age statement, but roughly what age are we looking at here?
I want to say, I think 9 to 13.
Interesting. 9 to 13 with that coloration.
Yep.
Huh. So what do you taste on this one, Forbes?
Well, as I mentioned, I get a little more fruitiness out of it. I got pear and some peach, and then some citrusy notes, and then as I mentioned, some vanilla. So I didn't get any of the juniper that you mentioned.
And that's one of the beauties of whiskey. I take my glasses off sometimes because even my eyes get strained.
Yep.
But also because it makes it easier to do this. It's really weird, but I found that I can smell more intensely if I don't have my glasses on. If I'm really getting into a sniff session, for lack of a better term, when I'm really trying to analyze and look at the nose of a whiskey, if I take my glasses off, I could get better at it. I don't understand how it works, but it works in my head somehow. I definitely see that orange is more like an orange marmalade.
Yeah.
Whew. The ethanol's hitting my nose.
And it's all done, as I mentioned, with our two different types of pot stills. We have the swan neck, traditional pot still. Then we have what we call our Lomond stills, which have, about 15-foot columns. It's more like kind of like almost like a hybrid between a pot still and a column still. But
yeah, do you have any graphics you can share with us of the distillery and of the stills?
Yeah, so I was just mentioning. So with the two different types of pot stills, we have the traditional swan neck along with the Lomond stills, which I guess are anywhere from 15 plus feet tall. I think there's 17 different layers of plates in that. It allows the vapors to come into closer contact with the metal, and we're able to produce at a higher ABV out of those stills. So this is made exclusively in the Lomond stills. So some of the that's one of the beauties of the distillery is that we're between having the two different types of pot stills, we're able to do all sorts of different combinations and so forth. I think we're now making I think 11 was the last I heard, 11 different types of single malts. And one of the things also we do differently, where 48 hours is the average fermentation period for a single malt, we do almost double that at Loch Lomond at 92 hours. So between having the longer fermentation, between having the non-chill filtration for everything other than the original. As I mentioned, one of only 4 distilleries with an on-site cooperage, which gives us full control over our barrels and our aging process, and allows us to get these barrels, the majority of them, which are all, used bourbon. I mean, I guess the last time I was in there, I was poking around and saw some Maker's Mark and some Jim Beam, Jack Daniels. So we're bringing those all over from the U.S., but it gives us the ability to recondition, refurbish them. We have a machine that decharges the machine, and then we're able to recharge. So there's a real science behind the barrels, and is one of only 4 distilleries with that on site. It really gives us an advantage as far as controlling our aging.
Do you have any graphics, any pictures or anything you can show us? I just tried to look it up real quick, and I was having trouble finding any images of a Lomond still. I found Loch Lomond's stills, but I didn't find a Lomond still.
I mean, yeah, I do have pictures. I don't know how I.
Just go ahead to the bottom and click share.
Oh, I have it on my laptop, and I'm doing this with you on my iPad, so I can access my. But I can.
Well, that won't work now, will it?
I can send you pictures.
If you want to send it to me, I can put them up right now. Yeah, that'll work. While you do that, I'm gonna keep working on this Loch Lomond British Open.
Okay.
Thank you guys as always for joining us. I know that 4 p.m. Pacific is not ideal for a lot of you guys. It's 6 Central, 5 Mountain, 7 Eastern. A lot of you guys are just getting off of work, or especially if you got back to work recently. We found that we like Tuesdays at 4 p.m., but we may be thinking of switching up to like Wednesdays or something. So if you're watching this after the show's done being live, if you're watching the replay, feel free to leave a comment, down below in the chat box of like, oh yeah, Wednesday's a great idea. You should do Wednesdays instead of Tuesdays, like this time. Because Wednesdays I have a little more flexibility. Right now because of COVID, we've all been stuck at home pretty much for a year. And I ride home with a mother who I live with right now. So, she works nearby, so we ride in and we ride out together. It works out really well. So I'm kind of on her schedule. But if I do Wednesdays, I might be able to do a later time. So you guys tell me what you think and what you want. Forbes, what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I'm I'm a couple hours ahead. I'm Central Time. I'm in Texas, so but obviously it's a little too late for our friends in Scotland, where it's past midnight there right now. So you having the 8-hour time difference with them makes it a challenge, and they've certainly been doing a lot more online learning these past.
Oh God, yes they have. I had a chat with James Wills a few months back, and he said, "Look, I'm really happy to come and chat with you, but I cannot do 4 p.m." I said, "What about 2 p.m.?" He's like, "Okay, I'll do 2 p.m." So he was really gracious enough to, grant us that time to do 2 p.m. My time. He was a little bit, even though it was still late for him, he just didn't want to keep getting up in the middle of the night, and I completely understand that.
Right.
I wouldn't want to keep getting up in the middle of the night all the time either.
Yeah. I know a lot of them are watching the Super Bowl, and they're still a little, I guess, jet lagged, for lack of a better term, from that too.
All right, let us get this started.
Oh, did not give you the? There we go. So there's some pictures right there.
So these are your pot stills or your Lomond stills, though?
Those are the traditional swan neck stills. Those, but the one in the middle there, that's our Lomond still.
Okay, interesting. So it's a hybrid pot column then.
Right. As I mentioned,
it's what I usually refer to as a Frankenstein still.
Right. 17 different layers of plates in there, and like I said, we're able to produce it up, able to distill at a higher ABV, so that just some of the scotches we do are done in are done exclusively in the swan neck. Some are done exclusively in the Lomond still. Some are a combination of the two. So again, it's just one other thing that gives us a lot of flexibility as far as.
And this is the Lomond still again?
That is correct. Yep.
All right, so that's actually a really nice angle. I like that angle. You can see kind of. No, I didn't want to go to the next one. I wanted to try and open this in a new tab, actually. That didn't work. Okay. All right. So there's the steam jackets right there, and you said 17 plates?
I believe 17.
Beautiful, and that's just, your standard pot. God, beautiful. I really cannot wait to visit.
It really is an unbelievable distillery, and the thing is, it's still not open to the public the way that Glen Scotia is. So it's got this sort of mystique in the town. Kind of, I guess people compare it to the Willy Wonka chocolate factory, where they know that some great things happen behind those gates and inside the factory, but the majority of people have never been able to go visit. So it's something where where it's appointment only, and obviously if we have customers that that are good customers or so forth that are in town and call in advance, we get them scheduled. We just don't have an open door policy yet. I think at some point we will, as we're getting certainly a lot more interest as far as people wanting to come and see for themselves what how the magic there happens.
Our friend Donner Pass said he remembers watching Michel Henry on Roy Aquavite, his live stream describing all the different elements that go into Loch Lomond 12. It's a Frankenstein of a whiskey in a good way.
Yep.
I like that, Frankenstein of a whiskey.
Definitely.
Our friend Jason's in the chat. We always love having Jason here. He said he's been enjoying whiskey from the Lomond stills lately. The Scotch Malt Whiskey Society's put out a few fun things, is what he was saying.
Okay.
Jason, I love the SNWS bottlings. They are so good, but they're just so expensive because you need the membership. Well, I think you don't need the membership. I think the membership is optional, but it gives you a discount on bottles, right? I don't know. I don't pay enough attention.
Yeah. So again, I mean, the real difference with that Lomond still is I think we're able to get distill at about 90% ABV, where with the more traditional stills is closer to 70. So it's a pretty big difference as far as the difference in the pure ABV we're able to get from the Lomond stills.
Can you go into a little more about that?
Well, I mean, it's a lot of it is due to the fact that we're able to have greater contact with the alcohol cooling vapor. So that's one of the reasons where it's able to come in at a higher ABV. And just
I'm sorry, what?
the different all the different levels of all the layers of the plates.
I guess my brain isn't working right because I'm just not following what you're saying.
It's because of the way that the still is configured. We're able to have come into greater contact. The still is with the alcohol vapor, and it's able to boost it up at a higher ABV.
So you're doing your hearts cut at 90%?
Yes. Well, it's able to produce up to about 90% ABV, where a traditional pot still I think is closer to 70.
That's actually a really interesting question. I've never asked what the traditional pot still hearts cut is at. I've asked a few distilleries here and there. Oh, well, what do you take your cuts at? Or, what do you distill to? But I've never, seen well, what's the average? And that's an interesting question, something I should start looking into.
Yeah. That's a I think Ian talked about that on our Glen Scotia talk a little bit, didn't he? About the different cut points and different percentages where it is.
Yes, he did.
At Glen Scotia.
I believe he did.
But I mean, there we only we don't have a Lomond still. It's only the traditional Swan Neck, and it's only
right. Scotia still there, right?
Yeah.
Jason said he picked up an Inchmirren from Ex Madeira recently.
Yes.
Oh, that sounds amazing, dude.
I'm curious. Was that in Texas?
Jason is in Kansas, actually.
Oh, okay.
And it might have been an SMWS bottling, I think
okay.
We were just talking about that a second ago.
Yeah, we did. Again, when we had the Inchmirren available a few years back in the U.S., it was mainly here in Texas, but we had a 12, we had the Madeira cask, and we had an 18. And then we had an Inchmoen 12, and I believe also an Inchmoen 25, if I can remember correctly. This is about 4 or 5 years ago. But like I said, we're going to be doing the 12 on both later on this year.
I look forward to it.
I do too.
Before we get into the 12 and the 18 of the Loch Lomond, I want to just take a few minutes and just focus on. God, my brain just completely blanked out. I want to focus on anything new that you can talk about really quick before we get into the age-stated. Any other, new fun SKUs coming for Loch Lomond in the coming, 6 to 8 months.
Well, yes, we have. Funny you should ask. We were just getting a lot of the timing finalized on this. We have a 21 year coming, as well as a 30, and then also a 45. All coming this year. Like 21, 30, and 45. So some really unique, new aged Loch Lomond's are going to be available. Probably. Definitely before the holidays. I think we've transitioned recently to a new importer, Blue Ridge, and right now we're just focusing on the core portfolio, getting everybody familiar with the core lineup, and not trying to have too much coming in at once. And obviously with the British Open in July, we're going to be releasing our British Open editions. Those should probably be getting over here in April. We're just now putting in the orders for that. So with the timing of that, we want to have we want to sort of stagger it so we don't have everything coming at once. So we're probably looking more like July, August when we have the definitely time for the holidays with both the 21, the 30, and the 45.
Well, I can't wait to bug Mitch for a sample. And I'm like, hey,
Exactly.
hey,
Yep.
remember that time?
Right.
Yeah. Donner Pass brought up a really good point. We were talking about SNWS, and it leads me to a question I want to ask about. In California, with K&L Wines getting so many amazing independent bottles, independent bottlers, we've got Old Particular, Hepburn's Choice, Douglas Lang, Hunter Lang, Alexander Murray. He can't justify an SNWS membership because he can get a 21-year-old cask strength from K&L for a little more or about the same price as an 8-year-old from SNWS. And that leads me to the question of, is there any more independent stuff coming to someone like K&L from Loch Lomond or Glen Scotia, independent cask strength bottles? They're bottling a blended malt right now because of the tariffs. And about a year ago, a little more maybe, I bought 2 bottles of what I believe was a 22-year Loch Lomond. It was an all malt, but it was a single grain Scotch. It was done on a column still.
So one of the things is, Sam, I'm not involved with all the different private bottlings of everything that come over. I mean, I manage our business with our core lineup that we make directly from the distillery, sell through our importer, and then there are other independent bottlers that do things separate from that, and they have their own importing company and so forth. So I mean, a lot of that, I'm not involved with, and I don't, some of it I'm not even aware of every single cast.
Very true, very fair. I just couldn't help but ask because, as you already know, I love the Loch Lomond line, I love the Glen Scotia line, and I want more of it, and I want more of it at cask strength.
Right. So I mean, until before 5 years ago, that was the only way to get any Loch Lomond was through these private bottlings and so forth. But we also are going to be kicking off our single grain, reintroducing that again, later on this year. So we have some, between the Inchmirren, the Inchmoen 12s, and then the single grain and the Loch Lomond 21, 30, and 45. We got a lot of new, a lot of new products are going to be available, and that's not even opening the door to a bunch of these other ones that the 700 ml is going to make available. So you're going to see, really a big uptick in our availability selection.
I love it. Our buddy Brandon Wheels was asking about the 19-year open edition.
Yeah, we're gonna each year for every British Open, we come out with a different. We call it our course collection, and it's something that we make, named after the specific course that where the British Open is going to be played. So, as I mentioned, this year it's going to be played at the Royal St. George's, and it's going to have Darren Clark's signature on it. So that's going to be something that we're going to be kicking off. I mentioned that we're going to be, kicking off probably in May, or I'm guessing probably, or maybe April, as far as when that's going to be available.
Gotcha. And is it all in NAS, or will there be, more age statements? Because Wheels was talking about the 19-year variant.
Yeah, no, we have 2 different types. We have the special edition, which is the one you have, which is the NAS, and then we have the course collection, which is going to come in a 3-pack, and that's probably going to retail closer to, like around a $199 price point.
For 3 full bottles, $199.
No, for each, but I'm saying they're packed 3 to a case, but $199 per bottle. Yeah, sorry.
3-pack.
Everything else we do.
3-pack case. I got you now.
Packs, everything else we do is 6-packs. So when you get into the higher dollar, we usually transition to a 3-bottle case.
Side note here, when I was working at the plant when you came to visit me there when you were in town last, And by the way, how did that dinner go that night? Did it go good?
Yeah, it was great. It was up. You probably remember the name of the place. I can't
I
remember, but
do
it was
very well. It was one of my. It's I used to work for that guy,
okay.
so I know it. I would call over there all the time. I took my mother to Valentine's Day dinner there at Saddle Peak Lodge in the Double Barrel at Saddle Peak.
Yes, that's it. Yep. Yeah, it was a
Um,
great event. Really neat spot up there in the hills.
it's beautiful up there.
Yeah.
It really is. Uh, what was I saying? I've done this so many times today. I need more whiskey.
That should solve it.
Um, Here we'll go with Donner's passage question. Oh, I remember what I was going to say before I get to your question, Donner. I promise I'll get to it in a second. Um, 3, 6, 12 pack. I always knew a case as a 6-pack. And then they're like, okay, so you want 12 bottles? I'm like, no, I want a case. They're like, yeah, a case is 12 bottles. I'm like, no, it's 6. They're like, it's a half case. And I'm like, what? No, like, I always knew a case is 6 bottles. So I was like,
I mean, standard in liquor is a 9-liter case, which is 12 bottles of 750s. So, like, for our blends, for example, that we ship those in 12 packs, and a lot of it has to do with the price point also. But with all of our single malts, with the exception, like I said, with like a course collection where you get, a higher retail price. And also we want to have it. I guess part of it's also because they come in a bigger box, and you can't. It takes up about as much space as a 6-pack, but yeah, everything, all of our core portfolio, Loch Lomond and Glen Scotia, are all 6-bottle cases, 650s, and then when you get into some of the higher end, it's a 3-pack, and then like the Loch Lomond 45, for example, a 1-bottle case.
yeah, that makes sense. A 3-bottle case on a 45-year-old Scotch seems a little
Right.
silly.
Yeah, not too many accounts would bring that in.
I mean, knowing Phil, he might. Donner asked if there's any plans for a core range 12-year featuring the Chardonnay wine yeast ferment from last year's Open.
I haven't heard of that yet. I haven't heard anything with coming down the pipe with the Chardonnay, but it doesn't mean it's not in the works. I know we're looking at all sorts of different things with moving forward and really trying to broaden our selection. So I haven't heard of it yet, but it's not to say that it won't be coming along at some point.
Because we talked about how the Open is different a little bit. There's the special edition and the course collection, and now Donner asked that question. That leads me to my question of how much production done at Loch Lomond is for the standard core releases, the original, the Open, 12, 18, eventually, 21, 30, and 45, and how much is experimentation? How much of it is, okay, well, we're going to distill this like we normally do, and, it's reached its 12-year maturation point, or it's reached 3 years. Let's put this 3-year-old into a barrel that used to hold, Madeira, and then let's put that Madeira then finish into a second barrel. Well, technically third, but you get the idea. How much is experimentation versus, just creation for regular release?
I would have to say that I think there's a lot of different research and experimentation going on just because of the plethora of new SKUs always coming out. I mean, there's just no question. I mean, like I said, we can't, in the U.S. we can't keep up with everything that's coming out of our new product development, just because, and a big issue of it is because we have to commit to a certain number of 750s. But without question, we, our new product development NPD, we call it team, is very busy all the time, coming up with new and great things, and it's sort of nonstop. And now with having the 700s, I think it's really going to help us make a lot more of these available. But to answer your question, there's we obviously the core range is where we're getting the majority of our volume, especially when you look at the original and the 12-year. but we're really going out further with that and looking at all sorts of different ways. And that's one thing with I think that we're going to see with Scotch is where I think that I've read that there's going to be some easing up on some of the different restrictions and names and so forth, categories to allow Scotch to get a lot more creative and come up with a lot more different varieties.
They recently allowed for other quote unquote unique casks, I guess is the
Right.
easiest way to describe it, like tequila, mezcal, things of that nature. Jason's commenting. He said he wants to work in the NBD New Business Development Department.
All right. Have him send me his resume. I'll put it over there. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. The team has, and I know they have weekly meetings, and I mean it's there's just a lot going on in that department. And looking at things other than just scotches also, like hard seltzers, and we have a gin now that we're making called Ben Lomond gin. So we're doing all sorts of really exciting creative things over there at the distillery.
Is the Ben Lomond available in America?
Not yet, no. Hopefully soon. Hopefully soon.
And that actually does segue into his next comment about what you're saying with the 700 ml rules. He'd hoped it would open things up. We all hoped it would open up, Jason. With the 700 ml, we all really hope and really want. Some of our favorite producers, myself, obviously, Loch Lomond, Nova Scotia. I've mentioned it many times, and I'll keep saying it till the day I die. Well, let's not be that grim, but I'll keep saying it for a long time to come. I love these two distilleries, Loch Lomond and Glen Scotia. I keep pointing over here because I kind of like backwards. We got back in time for Glen Scotia.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the whole 700 ml thing, I'm really hoping that opens up a lot of options and a lot of opportunity as well. It'll make it easier for us to get festival exclusive bottlings, or bottlings that are like quote unquote festival bottlings. So like Carchus every year is technically the festival bottling for Fashil,
right?
But they always sell it to America.
Well, it's going to allow us to do things like if we want to just order a pallet of 700s from Scotland, and because it's already bottled there, we can it's added to our container orders. Where in the past, anything that's coming from the U.S. has to be 750s, and we need to have the dry goods, and we need to plan way out in advance. And we're just we've been much more limited with what we can do with that. And also it's cost prohibitive unless you're ordering big quantities of something in a 750 size. So a lot of it just didn't make sense. Even if we wanted something, unless we could hit a certain threshold or a certain minimum, it didn't make sense financially to make it available to the U.S. in 750. So now again, I think it's going to really allow us to if we want to just throw in a pallet of something or different things and try it out all in the 700 mLs, we'll be able to have it, and we can we'll be able to ship it out to our customers wherever they're getting it, wherever they're asking for it. And certainly now with e-commerce, it's making that that whole process a lot easier than in the past, where where a lot of these sites now can ship over state lines and so forth. So there's just with COVID, there's been some recent developments as far as how e-commerce is really transitioning as well. So I think it's
absolutely. Kentucky
all good stuff.
Has partnerships now with different states that they can ship liquor direct to states.
Right.
You still can't ship into Kentucky, but you can ship out of Kentucky.
Right. It's just some of the control states, I think, that are really going to still be limited with what they have, and where they don't allow shipments coming in from other states, and they have very, very limited selections. They have the state liquor board that basically decides and mandates all the different brands that are available. But California, that's certainly not the case.
Speaking of control states, Jason's saying he wishes he got some Glen Scotia in Kansas.
We're gonna with our new Kansas is it's not a control state, it's a franchise state. But we are we're going to be doing I think we haven't had a whole lot of availability in the past in Kansas, but we will now moving forward with our new importer. So we'll see some more certainly some more selections coming up in Kansas. That's one of the things we're working on right now is increasing our distribution and our availabilities in Kansas.
Well, Jason, there you go. You have an answer as to when they'll get into Kansas for Loch Lomond Group. So
Right.
I've moved on to the 12, Forbes, if you want to join me.
I mean, I don't know. This 12, I think, is just it's it's been written up as one of the best single malts on the market for the price. It's one of the, I think, only 10 single malts that's ever won a platinum medal from the San Francisco World Spirits Competition. I think we talked a little bit about that maybe with when we were talking about Glen Scotia 25.
I believe we did. Platinum is double gold 3 years in a row, right?
Right. So we talked about that with the Glen Scotia 25. But to have a double gold 3 years in a row and earn a platinum for a brand that retails for $39.99 is it's really unbelievable. So I mean, this is this is just a phenomenal 12-year, and this also is aged in 3 different types. We do it in the bourbon and in the refill and the recharred. So this is I'm gonna join you with this one. This is just incredible.
Forbes, you telling me this is $40?
$40.
40, $40.
40, correct.
Shit, goddamn.
And it's 92 proof, non-chill filtered. It's amazing. I don't know. I can't.
I don't know how you can beat that. Honest to God, I'm not even being biased just because you're here. Like, that is one of the best deals in Scotch. I'm gonna be honest.
Yep. It's just amazing. Sounds like the extra $5 might be worth it for you over that open edition.
Absolutely. Oh man.
Yeah. What do you sort of, yes.
Drying, slight peat and
I'm
smoke.
getting the nose, some apple, pear.
I can definitely see that. It's probably partly power suggestion, but I definitely see that.
A little lemon.
I'm getting nutmeg. No. I'm getting clove and cinnamon.
You drink this all day.
Jason says it really is an amazing bottle, and he says that even when a rep isn't looking.
That's right.
Well, Jason, first of all, I would too. But second of all, I want to make Forbes happy. I like Forbes, and I want Forbes to like me and do business with me in the future of my bar. So you got to make sure Forbes stays happy. All jokes aside, no. I've had the pleasure of knowing Forbes
drinking this right now. This is all I need.
Slans, Forbes.
Sludge.
Apple pie.
Yep.
A little bit of toffee and butterscotch.
Yep. I'm getting a little lemon meringue.
I don't get that, but I do get a little bit of bitter.
Getting a little vanilla.
Sure, yeah. So as I was saying on the Glen Scotia stream, you guys, I've known Forbes for close to 4 years now.
Yeah.
It was an event with the Los Angeles Scotch Club, so thank you to Mr. Andy Smith for, putting the thorn that is me in Forbes' side.
That's how it all started in that backyard in Pasadena.
He sold that house, by the way. He moved. He sold the house.
It's the house where they filmed Back to the Future.
Yep. Beautiful place. Sadly, we don't get to go there anymore, but he sold it.
Well, I'm glad we're able to have a great event that one night. I think we went through the whole spectrum that night. It seemed like that was a big
including
night.
Inchmere and Inchmoan, yeah.
Yep. So I'm picking up a very little bit of peat on this. How about you? Just a touch.
I've actually started to look past it. Yes, it's there, and I do see the touch as well, but I've started to look past it. I always try when I'm tasting a whiskey that is even ever so slightly peated. I recognize the peat and then look past it from then on.
Yep.
Because
not
all I
much,
start talking about is the peat. That's all I'm going to get is the peat. Jason's saying, honestly, he paid $33 for his first bottle of LL12 last year, and the quality you get for the price is incredible. Maybe the best bang for your buck on the shelf.
Definitely. I think I think there was an article that came out a couple of years ago from Clay Whitaker, who writes for the Men's Journal. I think he basically said this: you can't beat the Scotch for the price. So there's no question that the price point and the quality on this is really unbeatable.
Moving on to the mouthfeel, it's just beautiful and creamy and a little thicker than one would expect on a 12-year at 46.
Yep.
46, right? Yeah, 46.
Yep.
It's got some floral notes in it. There's not much that this leaves to be desired.
No.
You pick this bottle up, you may not know it. Honestly, I'm going to start buying this as gifts for friends. I'm always looking for new whiskey to give to friends as a gift.
No one will be disappointed.
Like, yeah. Well, I don't like this. I don't like that. What do you recommend? And I'm like, well, you can go with this big guy or that big guy or that big guy or this small guy or this small guy. I'm going to start talking up Loch Lomond a little more because of just, damn, this 12-year is really, honest to God, impressing me.
Yeah, no, it's
the way it sits on your palate, just, as the whiskey itself just sits on your palate. You can literally feel the texture, the mouth feel of the whiskey and how it's separate from your palate and your saliva, but it slowly starts to meld and blend.
Right. And the thing
There's
is,
some whiskey that you just leave sitting there and they don't do that.
I mean, elsewhere around the world, I mean, it's going to be priced higher than it is in the U.S. I mean, as I mentioned, even though the distillery's been around for over 200 years, the Loch Lomond name has really only been in the U.S. now for not even 5 years, so it's still relatively new. And that was one of the things that our initial strategy was to be able to to offer a brand that elsewhere around the world is comparably priced to McMullin, but in some cases half the shelf price here in the U.S. So we really wanted to get aggressive with our pricing. A McMullin 12, great product without question. But it's $30 to $40 more on the shelf than this, and it doesn't have the the same ABV. So when you look at when you go dollar for dollar against it, this is just it's got a clear winner in my opinion. So I mean, luckily it's not just myself, and we got we got the backup, the San Francisco World Spirits Competition, and all sorts of different awards and accolades and write-ups on this 12. That it really is something special.
Oh, man. I really don't have words right now to describe this. I mean, normally I'm being speechless.
For people that just try it for the first time, it really does become their new go-to, because it is so amazing, especially at that $39.99 price point. Or some cases, less if as was mentioned earlier. So I mean, it's just a incredible Scotch at even a more incredible price.
The feeling it leaves on my mouth. I love when I find a whiskey that gives me that gum numb,
Yep.
but I usually only find it in bourbons. Something about high proof bourbons gives me that, but this Scotch is giving me that right now.
Yeah.
It it makes me salivate. It's very rare that I will taste a Scotch and I'm like, this is actually my salivary glands. Very common where I'll be like, yeah, this is really good. I really enjoy it. And, I'll want to drink more. But it's very uncommon where there's that kind of umami flavor
Right.
that kicks my salivary glands into overdrive and tells them, hey, you need to start producing saliva to like melt this shit into our mouth.
Right.
So before we move on to the 18, tell us a little about yourself and how you got involved, with the Loch Lomond Group. But actually, you know what? Before that, tell us how you got involved in the drinks and booze and spirits business, the liquor business.
Well, it was actually my first job out of college was with selling a brand called Jägermeister. I'm sure you probably.
I like Jaeger a lot. I really like Jaeger. I don't love Jaeger, but I like Jaeger a lot. A lot of people shit on Jaeger. I like Jaeger.
Well, it was certainly a very I guess memorable drink for me in college. And one of the things that I did in college was I spent a year abroad in Austria. I started taking German in 8th grade and took that all the way through high school and college and did a study abroad program. And I ended up in Salzburg, Austria for a year in college. And, which also happens to be in Salzburg where Red Bull came from. So needless to say, Red Bull and Jägermeister became pretty much a way of life for that entire year. And that's what we drank in addition to beer. So, I mean, and this is, probably 10 years, almost 10 years before Red Bull even was available in the U.S. But when I started applying for some jobs out of college, I saw an ad for a German importing company. It just said, German language speaking skills and travel required. And I love to travel. And I think last count I've been to 60 countries or so. I mean, every continent except Antarctica. So when I saw traveling involved in German, I jumped at it and didn't realize till after I'd already, till they called me back for an interview that it was Jägermeister. So it just seemed like a natural fit. And this was right out of college. And and then after, getting Jägermeister up and going, we kicked off Grey Goose when, launched that in the late 90s. And I was with that company for over 20 years. And then I was with, before Loch Lomond, I was with Constellation Brands, which is the biggest alcoholic beverage company in the country. It's mainly obviously wine and beer, but we were working on increasing our spirits portfolio, and then I got approached about this position with Loch Lomond Group and running the national business. And when I read more about it, to me, it sort of seemed like what could potentially be like the Grey Goose of Scotch. I learned, more and more about the distillery, and I, read about the quality and the awards, and, Scotch whiskey single malts especially has been a very big, strong category. Certainly there have been some setbacks in the last year because of the tariffs, but hopefully once those are gone, single malt will really start picking up and taking off again. So I mean, that's almost like a flick of a switch where that can turn. But but that's how I initially got started. So I've been with Loch Lomond Group now almost 5 years, and it's been great watching these brands get up and running. And our partnership with golf has just been sort of surreal. And I've been working now with these professional golfers, and and seeing the brand get exposure out on TV and so forth has just been it's been great. So I mean, even though we're still making a name for ourselves, we definitely feel like we're punching well above our weight class with some of the marketing support and the things that we're doing. And and we're very bullish on how we think this brand is going to continue to grow in the U.S.
I love it. I had no idea you worked in so many places before LLG.
Yep.
And, there's just something I can't wrap my brain around with LLG that it's, just about 5 years in the country. That means
Correct.
when I met you, you'd only been here for like a year, maybe two.
Right. Yeah. I think when we met, it was I want to say it was June of 17. So yeah, it was almost 4 years ago, and I had only been with the company, not even quite a year. I'll be been with the company 5 years this summer. So I was still at the very beginning with that, and we were just starting to get the brand up and running, and in the U.S. just really in a handful of states, probably at that point, fewer than 10 states. So now we're pretty much in every market other than some of the control states, the smaller ones, we still haven't worked into getting into yet. But I think that's gonna, I think by the end of this year we plan on being in all 50 states and all the control states as well.
So what did you study in college, Forbes?
Well, I did. I was actually an English major, but I took also. I was always really liked foreign languages, as I mentioned. Sort of based around my traveling and my love for travel. So in high school, I took German and Spanish, and then I continued taking both in college, and also took French in college, and took a lot of political science, which also I like to tie in with my travel, and then I ended up doing my MBA in international business and did some additional study abroad programs in that. I did one in Germany, one in Czech Republic, and one in Chile. So
Wow.
that's why this for a long time we were doing a tequila, Corazon tequila at my old company, Sidney Frank, and then also more recently Casamigos. So I was going down to Mexico quite a bit. We had a sake that we were making over in Japan, so it was traveling over there. So it's just it all just sort of fit in with the international flair, in my background with the languages and the traveling. So that's how I initially started out. First job right out of college, and I thought college was fun till I started selling, Jägermeister, and had to go right down to South Padre Island for spring break for a month and work down there and get paid to basically have more fun than I had in college.
I'm sorry. That is just such when a lot of people who the end consumer see people, even myself, although to an extent, but they see brand ambassadors and they're like, "Oh, you just get paid to get drunk and go to bars and buy people drinks." It's like that's an aspect of the job, but like it's not the entire job. But
at this point, Sam, I hope to be able to hire some brand ambassadors. Right now, I'm just still the one-man show in the U.S. and I manage all of our business, every aspect of it, and doing, and brand ambassador is just one additional hat that I wear, and and I had never sold Scotch before this company 5 years ago, so it was something I immediately fell in love with and felt very passionate about, and and certainly wanted to learn more about as I continue to sell it. And certainly when you're selling something, you want to know what you're selling. So I've really kind of picked up that whole ambassador, I guess, feel to it with, and it's been great being able to get out and do lots of events like this, and mainly because I'm the only person in the company that lives here in the U.S. right now. Although at some point we certainly plan on changing that and bringing and having more Loch Lomond Group people here in the U.S.
Well, when you're ready, I'm available.
All right, thank you. I mean, before COVID, I was also traveling 45 weeks a year, so it's been a big adjustment for me as well.
My last question about your time before Loch Lomond Group, for now anyway. You said you helped start Gregory's bringing into the market for 20 years. I'm assuming, obviously, well, not assuming, I know that was pre-Bacardi, but did you stay on with Grey Goose post-Bacardi, or did you leave when Bacardi took the brand over?
We kicked off Grey Goose in 1997, fall of 1997, and Bacardi bought it in June of 2004. So we
Okay,
had.
so you were still on board with them for a
Yes.
long time.
Then I was on, and right around the time we sold Grey Goose is also when Jägermeister really started to explode. Because of the Red Bull phenomenon. So right at that point, both brands were doing right around 1 million 9-liter cases, which is huge for a brand. So even though we sold Grey Goose to Bacardi, Jägermeister continued to explode. Even after that, and got up close to. I think it was almost up to close to 2 million cases.
Did anything change? I'm just always a little curious, and you can feel free to, not answer this question out of, workplace politics or whatever. What changed, if anything, and how drastically from when it was Grey Goose pre-Bacardi to Grey Goose with Bacardi?
Well, I think that at the time, I don't think there'd ever been a brand that sold for more. It was over $2 billion. So this is before, again, this is 2004. So this is before Absolute sold to Pernod for a lot more than that. But I guess one of the things that Bacardi immediately had to do was they had to figure out a way to start making some of that $2 billion plus back. And, where they were really able to capitalize, where we were not so much, because Sidney Frank Importing was just really US based. And, that was one of the things that was owned by an American, even though the vodka was made in France. But Bacardi was able to expand the brand globally. So that was where, they were able to really, with their global international footprint and presence, they were able to really help take the brand from the U.S., where it was really at one point only available in the U.S., even though it was made in France. That was something that was certainly interesting, was that, even though the brand was made in France, whenever I was over in Europe, you couldn't buy it in Europe. So that was one thing that was only available in the U.S. So that was one thing Bacardi was immediately able to do, was able to get it all over the world, much more quickly.
Gotcha. Well, let's go back to whiskey, shall we?
Yep.
So we've talked on the 12, we've talked about the open, we've talked about the original. Let's move on to the 18, shall we?
Yep. So like
I said, oof.
So this is made entirely in our Loch Lomond stills. So not in the Swan Neck, just in the 18. The 18 is just made in the Lomond stills.
Lomond stills.
Yeah.
I wish I could be able to zoom in with this. I wonder if I can actually. Let me take a look at something here. Because I'm running through a couple of different systems here. I wonder if I can zoom in here. Probably not. Worth a try. Forbes, hope you don't mind my experimenting while we're talking.
No worries. No.
Because I want to show this bottle better. I have a decent zoom in now, but I'd like to be able to zoom in on this bottle if I can much better. While I'm chatting, while I'm doing this, why don't you tell us more about the 18 year, please?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, it's distilled in our unique Loch Lomond stills. One of the things that that I always hear about this one is back when this was being bottled. I guess actually even before, when it was initially being put into casks. All the casks were hand selected by our master cooper at the time, a gentleman named Tommy Wallace. So a lot of this, hard to believe, was back some of it more than 20 years ago. Some of this was bottled was distilled back close to 20 years ago. But this has got a little more peat in it. You're going to pick up certainly a little bit more than what we had in the 12. This is going to retail for $89.99, which is still unbelievable for an 18 year. And, this just won a double gold at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition in last year's show. So, and hopefully, we're on our way with this with a platinum as well. But, this is, a lot of people ask if this is the same as our 12, except aged longer. Not at all. I mean, different stills, different casks, very different entirely. I mean, if you taste this compared to the 12, there's very little, similarity between the two other than the Loch Lomond name on them. But, this is, again, just an unbelievable 18, and especially you're not going to find any 18 under $100 of this quality. So, once again, we just gotten very aggressive on our pricing, and I really love this one as well. It's got a little more peat, which I like a little bit of peat, and sometimes a lot of peat. Just sort of depends, but this sort of delivers on every front.
It's fantastic. I did take a sip of it, and I'm just, Oddly enough, it's a little lighter than the 12, I find.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a little more mellow, I guess, because that's what the extra aging can do to it. But I like the fact that it's got a little more peat in it, and just a little.
Whereas the 12 had that really intense, viscous note to it, this is a little thinner. Still full body, full of flavor, but just a little bit thinner on, the mouthfeel.
Yeah, I pick up a little more wood, and oak in this one than I do in the 12. Even a little tobacco leaf on this. I mean, just partially because of the peat.
Yeah, I can see that. Kind of that bitterness. I want to say there's almost a leather-esque quality to it, leather-like characteristic.
Right. Definitely a little wood smoke. I mean, the 12, as I mentioned, something I can just, enjoy every day. That 18 is, this is just, it's not an everyday, but it certainly is a very.
I would not call the 18 an everyday whiskey.
It's a very special occasion, but it's just a great 18.
See, I disagree with you there.
Sorry?
This is not I disagree with you there. This is not an everyday whiskey, but it's not a very special occasion only whiskey.
No. The right occasion, but just not every day. I guess there's a lot of occasions, just not daily.
Yeah, I would not call this a daily drinker. This is something you definitely do want to sit down with and take your time.
Yes.
Maybe have a nice cigar with, or pair it with a nice steak dinner.
Yeah, this is a cigar scotch, definitely.
It's robust flavors, I feel like. And again, I don't smoke, so I wouldn't know for certain. But I feel like the robust flavors of this scotch would hold up well with a cigar.
Yeah, actually, we did this event called the Big Smoke a couple of years ago in Las Vegas, and this was definitely the big favorite at that event. For all the cigar smokers that were coming through, and they just thought this was the perfect cigar pairing scotch. So
I can understand why. It has those smoky notes, those kind of,
right,
scorched, burnt earth. A little bit of that, regular, dusty, dirty earth.
Right.
But it's backed by subtler notes of orange, maybe a little bit of lemon zest.
Yep. I get a little apple in the taste, a little green apple.
I can see apple, just ever so slightly. This would go well with seafood, actually. Something like oysters or sea eel or something really briny. I feel like the brine, the salt, smokiness
Yep.
complement a really salty fish really well. Or also on the other end of the spectrum, something like barramundi, which is like an Australian whitefish, Australian cod. And I feel like it might go really well with that, flaky, inherent natural sweetness that the barramundi has.
Yep.
Guys in the comments, please, we're starting to wrap up for the night. We do have about half an hour left on the live stream today. And next week is going to be a good time. Next week, I'm excited to welcome my friend Brian Sykes onto the show. Brian is the California brand ambassador for Aberlour Scotch Whiskey. We'll be tasting through 5 marks of Aberlour. And then the week after that, guys, get ready. That's a big one. I'm excited to welcome Master Ambassador for Beam Suntory Scotches, Simon Brooking, to the show. And we're going to be chatting all things Lafroig. And knowing Simon, he'll be fully kilted up, and you'll probably get a song or two.
I apologize. No kilt. I think a lot of people hear my name and they think I'm Scottish, and they're a little disappointed that I have the Scottish name but not the accent.
Well, you can make up for it with a song, Forbes. How's that sound?
Well, like the Loch Lomond song?
Sure.
I don't know it. I'll have to. But the Bonnie Banks of Loch Lomond. You take the high road, I'll take the low road. I know that, but I don't know the words. But I'll study them and I'll get back to you, and I'll put it in MP3 and send it to you. How about that?
Forbes, what is your heritage? With a name like McMullin, you would assume that you are Scottish.
Correct. Yeah. McMullin and Forbes is Scottish as well.
So, funny story. When I first met you, I'm like, wait, his name is Forbes? Like, the news website, Forbes. And occasionally when I can't quite remember it, when it's blanking in my brain, I'm like, wait, oh, right. Forbes, like the news website.
Yeah.
Or did you come first and they're named after you?
I wish, and I wish they were a little more closely related to that Forbes family, because my grandmother was a Forbes and not closely related enough to Malcolm.
I tell all my friends, this guy I knew growing up. We knew each other until about 3 years ago, almost now, 2 years ago. He used to like being characters, and doing voices and like impersonations and stuff. So one day, it's this guy Charlie, my friend Logan, and myself. We're supposed to go on a bar hopping, bar crawl kind of thing. I was supposed to, because we got going. We only went to 2 places. That is not a bar hop. That is not a bar crawl. Something about it being late and we got started. I don't know, or whatever. I don't know. We went to 3 places. But still, 3 places in like a 1-mile walk. We went to a restaurant in the Grove, a bar down the street, and then another bar down the street. He liked doing voices and impersonations. So this one day he decides to be a Southern dude. He's like, "Hey, Hey Logan, that's that Nash guy they named Nashville after. Now, his southern accent is much better than mine. Mine is super bad. But it was funny in the moment, and I still occasionally use it nowadays because my nickname, middle name, whatever people think it's my real name, it's Sam Nash Green. It's Nash. People think Nash is my real name. It's not, it's a nickname. I kind of gave it to myself in high school. And I know everyone in the comment section is going to be like, well, that's not how that works. Shut up. You're like, that's that Nash guy named Nashville after. So when I'm talking to a friend of mine, depends on who it is, but I'm like, oh yeah, you're in Nashville, if they're in Nashville, Tennessee, but I always spell it with a K. And I'm like, you know they named it after me, right? And they all get confused for a second. I'm like, I'm joking. Funny story to me, anyway.
That is. Didn't know that. I was just going to say, though, but when we first met, your hair was a little longer.
You had going out me? Yes. My hair was down to about here when we first met.
Right.
And I believe I could probably find a photo with Andy from that night. How was Andy, by the way?
He's good, actually. I just got an email from him today, so he's doing well.
Good. Nice guy. Andy
Yep.
Calder, global sales director or something like that, right?
Right.
Let me see if I can find a photo from that day. I found one last time we were on stream. Let me see if I can find another one. Yeah, I'm sure I have one with Andy somewhere. For everyone not familiar, Andy or Andrew Calder is the global ambassador, like global sales director for the Loch Lomond Group. And he's a proper Scotsman with the accent, even.
Yeah, he is.
Nice guy.
He owns a kilt, so he's
he owns a kilt.
way ahead of me.
I like how that is like what defines someone as a proper Scotsman. Of, do they own a kilt? Yes. Then yes, they're a proper Scotsman.
He probably even can bagpipe.
So, a friend of mine and a colleague, Andy Wire, can bagpipe quite well, and he has been known to be borrowed by Scotch whiskey brands other than the one he works for to do bagpiping. Okay. Yep, I found one. All right. Let's share this with you guys. There we go. Give it a second to load because I did find a photo.
There he is. There you are. Yep.
Of me and Andy Calder with my longer hair. So that was the night I met both you gentlemen.
Yep.
LA Scotch Club, and that was the lineup. Now, I had been to maybe one LA Scotch Club event at that time. There was no dump glass anywhere, Forbes.
There was no what?
And there was no dump anywhere.
No, there wasn't. That was just not the way we were going to do that night. It was full consumption.
That's definitely full consumption.
It was an Uber night.
I Ubered anyway. Oh, yeah. Glen Karen Pin. And there you are.
I haven't worn a sport coat in like almost a year now. Hard to believe.
I wore them for my video series that I recorded.
It looks like we're socially distanced, and we weren't even consciously doing it that night. Look at us. We could probably easily hold the same type of event right now, tonight.
I mean, that's a little less than 6 feet, Forbes.
What's that?
That's a bit less than 6 feet.
Well, we could easily just put a few more feet, but the whole concept of being outside like that in a circle, we could certainly make a few minor adjustments and
15 double cast.
Yeah.
This is the Inchmurin, the 18-year.
Oh, that's a good one.
Is that flash, or is there a color difference on the label between the 18 I have and that 18? Must be flash.
Yeah, your 18 should still look like that. Like I said, we're gonna be. I'll send you some pictures of what the new packaging will look like.
So for those of you who were watching, I mentioned it earlier, the Loch Lomond Reserve. It's about a $15, $16 bottle, and it's actually one of my favorite blended Scotch whiskies. That is a different event, so let's just close that out. Forbes, I'm going to call us for the night. I greatly appreciate your time today and last time as well. It is always a pleasure to talk to you. I look forward to many more events with Loch Lomond and Glen Scotia, and hopefully finding a bottle of Glengarry soon, because honestly, I really do want to try it.
Well, I will do my best to hope you try to locate one also on my end and find out. But apparently,
you raise a glass with me, sir.
You got it. Great seeing you again, Sam. And hopefully,
there are good ships and there are wood ships, and there are ships that sail the sea. But the best ships are friendships, and may they always be. Slan Shava.
Baja.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you as always for tuning in. We will see you next week with Brian Sykes of Our Lauer. And look out for more awesome and fun content coming from me very soon. Cheers.
Cheers.
And have a great day.